We all want healthy plants and delicious fruits and vegetables. The only way that's going to happen is if the plants have all the nutrients they need to be healthy and to produce great tasting produce. The way that happens is by feeding them exactly what they need. We know that plants need 16 nutrients. 3 of them they get from the air. The other 13 they need to get from another source. With typical organic gardening, at the beginning of the season, you'll put on 2-3 inches of compost or manure and hope that's enough for the whole growing season. Some organic gardeners, but very few, will actually continue to feed during the season, but that's not typical. So the problem we have with traditional organic gardening is that when the plants need the nutrition the most, when they're producing heavy fruit towards the end of their season, that's when they have the least amount of nutrition. With the Mittleider gardening method, we fertilize every week, and that's why we're talking today about the weekly feed. Another big advantage of the weekly feed is that it is completely sustainable. This one $15 bag of Mittleider Magic Micro Mix, when mixed with 13-13-13, 16-16-16, 17-70-17 all-purpose fertilizer and some Epsom salts, will give you 60 pounds of fertilizer. Because you only need a half an ounce of fertilizer per foot per week, this is enough to completely fertilize the typical family garden for an entire year. What you see here is everything you need and all the storage space that you need for a year's supply of fertilizer for the typical family garden. Because we don't know what's happening in the future, and we don't know how available fertilizers will be, and if you wanted to stock, say, 5 years worth of fertilizer with the Mittleider gardening method, you simply need 5 bags of the Mittleider Magic Micro Mix. Then you would also need the all-purpose fertilizer and some Epsom salt. And you would have all the nutrition that you needed to grow a family garden for 5 years, tucked away in a very small area in your garden shed or your garage. Think about how much space it would take if you were going to put 5 years worth of cow manure and compost in your backyard for your typical organic gardener. The Mittleider gardening method is much more sustainable than the organic gardening method. So what I've done is I've actually purchased 5 bags of the Mittleider Magic Micro Nutrient Mix, and then when I go to Home Depot or Lowe's, just like when my wife goes shopping and she picks up an extra can of this or an extra box of that for food storage, I pick up an extra bag of 13-13-13 fertilizer, because that's what we have here in the Houston area. Or you might pick up an extra bag of 16-16-16, and before you know it, you throw in a box of Epsom salt and you have 5 years worth of fertilizer for your entire garden. Then you know that you have all the nutrients that your plants need. And when you have that and your seed bank, you're in good shape. Make sure you check the description box below this video for links to all the sources and prices of everything I mentioned in this video, including the fertilizer, the Mittleider Magic Micro Nutrient Mix, Epsom salts, and seed banks. Let's go ahead and get this mixed so you can see how you would mix this and use it in your garden. When you get the Mittleider Magic Micro Mix, you'll get 2 packets in a bag. Each packet will make 25 pounds of fertilizer. And the instructions are very clear. All you need to do is mix this 10-ounce package of Micro Mix with 4 pounds of Epsom salts and 25 pounds of 16-16-16, 13-13-13, or 70-70-17, something like that. Don't go with 10-10-10 or 20-20-20. That's too low or too high. Stick between the 13s and the 17s if at all possible. I've got a bathroom scale here, and I've got my weekly feed bucket. I'm going to put my bucket on the scale and pour 25 pounds of the 13-13-13 into the bucket. Then I'm going to add 4 pounds of Epsom salts, and then I'm going to pour in my bag of the Mittleider Magic Micro Mix. Let's go ahead and do that. I have the fertilizer all mixed up. I actually ended up mixing it by hand. Found it easier. There was some clumping in the fertilizer mix and the Epsom salt, so I just kind of broke those up by hand. So that's all mixed, but what I've done here is I've added 1/2 half a pound of perlite, because perlite will help absorb the moisture that's going to be created by the Epsom salt mixed in with the 13-13-13. And that will make it so it won't clump up and be easier to distribute when I'm fertilizing the garden. If you're finding that you've got some clumping in your Mittleider weekly fertilizer, you can use 1 pound of perlite for every 60 pounds of fertilizer. Now that you have your weekly feed mixed up, you're going to want to apply it to your grow bed or to your grow box. An easy way to do that is to pre-mark a can. For example, if you've got a 30-foot long grow box or grow bed, you're going to need 15 ounces of weekly feed. Take a small scale, put a can on it, fill it up with 15 ounces of fertilizer, mark it, and then from then on, all you need to do is fill up the can to that mark, and you know you have the right amount of weekly feed. On the same can, if you have a smaller bed, maybe a 10-foot long bed, then you just mark it appropriately. Makes it quick and easy to apply the fertilizer. I like to keep my weekly feed in a 5-gallon bucket because it's very convenient for me to use it. I do have one recommendation though. There are a couple different lids that you can get with a 5-gallon bucket. One has a rim that goes all the way around and really clamps on nice and tight and secure. This is really good for example, food storage and other items that you're not going to be needing to get into very often. And if you're going to use that, I do recommend you get some kind of a tool like this that will help you pry that up. Otherwise, your fingers may get sore prying that lid off. But what I prefer is this lid. This only has 4 areas that really clamp all the way on to the lid. The rest of it kind of rests over the rim. It does have a rubber gasket in there to help keep the air and moisture out. But this is much easier to put on and put off on a weekly basis. Just snaps on, and then it comes off easily by just simply pulling that one point instead of having to go around and do all those separate points on the other lid. If you're wanting to mix larger quantities of the Mittleider weekly feed and you don't want to have to do the math, download the Mittleider method of fertilizing document from facebook.com/groups/Mittleider gardening in the files section, and you'll be able to print out this sheet right here that gives you all the ratios and also the amounts in weight, cups, or tablespoons to make it really easy to do larger or smaller batches. The easiest way to mix up the weekly feed that I have found is simply by following the instructions that come in the packet with your micronutrient mix. Sometimes you can't find a 25-pound bag of fertilizer. Get a 35-pound bag and take 10 pounds out. It would be the easiest thing to do. I have found that what we thought were diseased plants in our gardens were simply plants that were missing micronutrients. They weren't diseased, they were just undernourished. The Mittleider weekly feed takes care of that problem, and you'll see stronger, healthier plants with higher production and tastier, more nutritious fruit. This is LDS Prepper reminding you, if ye are prepared, ye shall not fear. I hope you take the time and the few dollars it takes to get the simple ingredients you need to make your own Mittleider weekly feed and have it on hand for this year and for the years to come, so that when you need to be able to plant and eat from your garden, you can, and you can guarantee your plants all the nutrition that they need. Again, check the links below this video for all the items that you need to make your Mittleider weekly feed.